and thank you all for attending today's Vanta information session for educators and for parents. Frankly, for those who are really interested in learning more about esports in general and where Vanta fits in and the various different programs that we have to assist in youth development. Some general housekeeping rules. Tonight's meeting is an hour long. It's in a webinar format. So we have myself and a panel of speakers, and there will be a general question and answer period at the end. We'll spend about the first 40 and 45 minutes going through the presentation, followed by 15-20 minutes of Q&A. For those that do have questions, please feel free to type them in the chat for us to respond. Following the meeting, we will send each of you a copy of our presentation to have on file. And I wanted to thank you all for joining today, and we definitely appreciate your support. So let's begin. I'm going to share my deck. Just 1 second. So we're joined today with a few of my colleagues, CEO Patrick Cronin, myself, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer. We have Kyle Donnelly, who's our Chief Marketing Officer. And also our special guest today is Rebecca Yocono, who's the head of the middle school at Worcester Academy. Our team itself was founded with 5 key individuals, and we have certainly expanded our team. And each of us has a specific sort of different background on gaming, on work experience, and that's all real helpful with executing our mission, which is really to assist in the development of youth gamers. The esport industry itself is massive. And for those who don't know esports, it is competitive video gaming. The market itself is grown substantially, to over 159 billion in revenues, and it grows at a 12% clip. These games that you see here are just a sampling of the different types of options kids and adults are playing, from the sport games like FIFA or Rocket League, which is like soccer with cars, to first-person shooters. This is like a Call of Duty or Valorant, Overwatch, or it could be something like League of Legends, which is a 5-on-5 battle arena strategy game. And all of these have viewers, all of these have players, and with that in mind, these games are just a representation of a larger ecosystem. This graph here really illustrates clearly how broad esports has become, and where are the specific players in those certain quadrants within the ecosystem that make it up. So if you look at the beginning, you have your professional competitive gaming tier. So you have your pros in the middle, and then below that you have your semi-pro amateur gamers, and then below that is more of the casual gamers. And surrounding that, outside of that dotted line circle, you have all these different third parties that are supporting esports. So you have your social media on the top right. You have your game publishers to just below that, and then you have different leagues, competitive leagues, which you see on the bottom right. Then if we move to the left here, you're seeing different conferences or events. You'll see different equipment providers, food and beverage providers, telecommunications and such. And then you have your professional teams on the top left there too. So all of these third parties are pumping in money, they're pumping in resources to support an interest, a need that is, is being curated over time. And it's it's becoming to the point where there's a lot of opportunities in the esports space. So esports, unlike our traditional sports, uh, actually has a lot of unique skill sets that can be derived from it, that you can learn from it. And frankly, a lot of parents and educators may not even know where that path leads. Esports is not a frivolous activity. It's fundamentally good. And it has a lot of benefits, just like traditional sports, but actually in addition to, there's that technology element. As we know, there's a lot of jobs out there in computer science, in technology, and this really is a starting point for that enthusiasm, for that that interest in that space. Yes, you can be a professional gamer, but you can also go into computer science, technology, engineering, data science, and such. You can go into various esport roles if you like. You could go into like the big data side of cybersecurity, AI, graphic design. And in addition to the specific roles and positions that you could, work towards and study for, there's also inherent life skills that come from gaming, from your respect, empathy, teamwork, communication. In addition to that, it's problem solving, multitasking, goal setting. There's so many different options here and benefits that come from esports. It's just trying to educate everybody to know that there is meaning behind this and it's worth our attention. In fact, when we started Vanta, it happened because early last year, my son, and I'm married with two kids, and I've got a 12-year-old son and a 11-year-old daughter. My son comes in upset and crying because he was cyberbullied playing Fortnite, and he wanted me to find a way to fix it because he didn't want to go outside and play with his friends and get sick. And so this is an inherent issue, the cyberbullying element. And this is a derivative of when you have an unchecked space that is so broad, and you can see the numbers here, it's massive. There really isn't any substantial structure. There's no adult in the room to protect these kids, to guide them in the right way. This chart is fascinating. You're looking at the traditional sports here, the pipeline you have from majors all the way down to your local town little league. There's always these different stage gates where the youth can progress to a higher level. However, if you're looking at pro teams on the esports side, that's what you got. And then underneath of it is just a myriad collection of ad hoc teams and clubs. There is no substantial fundamental development pipeline that you start with the youth and then you progress north. It really is choose your own adventure, like these. And oftentimes, and I speak to a number of parents through this, these kids that are playing, they're spending hours a day. They're working, they're grinding it out. They're playing multiple games. They're going on YouTube, trying to learn on their own, and that's not helpful, because in lieu of the fact that there is no structure, there also is no guiding force on best practice. And so with that in mind, you have a lot of negative, bad behavior coming out. So just look at it. These kids, when they're playing in the tournament, they're little leagues. They just started playing. But then when they come into a tournament, they're playing against the pros. It's just a misalignment of resources. And so with that in mind, there's, in addition to lack of development and fragmented structure, you're really getting a coaching gap. Again, there's no adult in the room. So that's really important. And when you have that gap there, you're creating an environment that's negative, because the kids are going to be frustrated that they're losing, that they're not getting what they want, because they're trying so hard to win and they have no help. And they're frivolously, tediously going through many places to find help and find resources, but they don't know what to look at, what's useful, and then how to apply it. And so that's where, when you're getting all this sort of negativity, you're seeing some negative results that are coming into that you see in the household. So you're seeing kids with outbursts of anger. You're seeing some anxiety. You're seeing an unbalanced sort of lifestyle. And it doesn't matter the game. It really isn't. You could maybe say, oh, it's going to happen for like specific first person shooters. This is actually happening in Minecraft. This is a sandbox game where you build toys. Do you know there's 2.5 million players registering complaints that they've been cyberbullied on Minecraft? This is rampant across the board. And what the solution is Vanta. And so what we designed, when that situation happened, when my son comes in and is crying, he's like, Dad, how can you help? I'm aware of how toxic it is, but I'm also applying what I've learned in the past, which is I used to play, basketball. I used to coach basketball. I'm familiar with a structured development program by having, practices, games, having a developmental curriculum, and then having the ability to test that learning competitively against other teams. There's a way to build community within your team and also within the league, and that's what's sorely missing right now for our youth. So we decided to create a structured developmental program that really focuses on mentorship and community. And we do this through a holistic player development approach. And when we're looking at what's driving this, it's really the need for better coaching. When you can get a better coach, you're getting better results. Kids are going to be happier playing. And this is what is a misalignment of resources. There's coaching sites out there already, but it's only for the individual. When the kids go and play, they're playing multiplayer games. And that means that when they're playing and being matched up with, random people they don't know, they're not motivated to work as a team. They're only thinking of the individual. And so that siloed individual mindset is really challenging the development of not only the players, but the industry itself. And so by having a team-based learning platform that we're instilling in Vanta, we're creating a safe, controlled environment that allows these kids to learn and to be, joyful in the game and to optimize that screen time. Instead of grinding it out, like I said, practicing and watching videos for 6+ hours. Within our practices, they're an hour and a half long each, and there's twice a week. This is meaningful coaching and meaningful development, and the results are really great. And by the way, we don't do anything LAN. There's no LAN sites. There's no physical location you have to be. We're a virtual company, and that really allows the ability for us to connect with so many more people and build out that community. We'll be talking about this later today in the Q&A part, but that social emotional learning is so key. There's a whole group of people out there who don't fit in. They're gamers. They're not going to be slam dunking a basketball. They're not going to be pass blocking somebody. They're just not, that's not who they are. Who they are gamers. And they want to feel included and they feel challenged because there's a lack of structured community. Vanta provides that in a lot of ways. And so that benefit, I was talking about that social and emotional learning piece, it's really important. That community is so integral for their mindset as an individual and as a contributor to society. If we can create best practices through our mentorship, they'll feel supported, they'll actually pay it forward. And that's really key. And all that cyberbullying nonsense that I'm talking about, that will go away because we're providing a best practice structure, and I think the safety is so key for our kids. And we'll be talking about what we're looking to do to really enhance that gamer safety, particularly on not just the curriculum, but also the platform. So there are a lot of inherent benefits to working with Vanta. I'd like to now transition to the Vanta Academy, which is really our established coaching development program. So we have two communities in Vanta. We have your players and we have your coaches. And frankly, we're developing both. It's important that if you're a parent in the school and you're bringing, you're putting your trust in us to, help these kids learn, we want the very best coach in the room to help them, guide them through this journey, season after season. And so when we look at our coaches, we're looking to vet them in a meaningful way. And this chart really explains how we actually onboard them and how we qualify them. And really, we're building this out even more so beyond what you're seeing here. So it's more than your background checks in your couple interviews and your ongoing sort of discussions. And we employ a cohort learning basis, much like how we team-based learning with the players. We have a team-based learning program for coaches as well, where they feel like they're part of the community and they can resource share. Like anything in coaching, it's an art and a science. And so we provide that framework, we provide those resources so they're happy and motivated, but we also want them to provide that creativity and really showcase their true style. And so that development program is really designed to really help, show the benefits that we're talking about earlier, which is you can get more for less. So that optimized screen time, that holistic player development. Kids are unbalanced. They're not taking showers. They're not even eating meals. They're playing games too long because they really want to learn how to win and they don't know how they do it. And they figure, let's just keep playing and sooner or later we'll figure it out. If we can create balance with proper mentorship, we can create better outcomes. The basic curriculum is really more themed based. And so this is where I was talking about that art and the science. Certain teams may be progressing faster than others, and that's fine. But we want there to be certain structures in place so you understand that, hey, you know what, when I go in like this week, we're going to be looking on communication or goal setting, or we're going to be working on teamwork, or even just the basic mechanics, or a strategy and such. And then we'll bake in sort of like health and wellness, and other elements in there. And we allow our coaches to flex in order to adapt to the certain situations. And we have proper mentorship for these coaches. So, after practices, we have that after action review, and we have that in constant engagement because we want that feedback, not just from the coaches, but also from the parents, players, and educators. We're all part of this community together, and we all want it to succeed. And so I think having these frameworks in mind and providing transparency to everyone will give more confidence in what we're trying to do. And frankly, what we're aspiring to do is being the most trusted brand in esports. And that starts with transparency and accountability. And so far, we started this in July. We're officially launching in June. And since then, since July, we've been working on validating our business assumptions, doing a number of test leagues. And really, we started with 6 players, and now we have over 112. It's really grown substantially, and we're covering, schools and communities from New England to even to Hawaii. It's really great, and the feedback has been extremely positive. I mean, I think one thing to note here, one specific quote, if you look at the parents one, that quote below, that psychologically, I felt less guilty about my son playing video games. I think this is challenging for a lot of parents. We grew up, I'm 42 years old. I started playing, in the 80s. Like, I get it. It used to be just a frivolous pastime. Now there's actually a lot more to it. Games are far more complex and far more, connected with other communities. It's not just you in the basement anymore. Like, you're now out there reaching out. And now during COVID, this is probably the closest they get for feeling human, that building that community, especially if you're remote learning. And so, I think the point I'd like to just share with you today is that we're committed to providing the very best, development for your youth. And we want you and your community to know that we're around, that we understand the challenges that are in place with esports, and we're dedicated to provide a solid structure in place that will provide meaningful benefit, not just for now, but in the future. We have currently a league, our 3-season league that started in February, but we do rolling monthly admission. So if you are interested to sign up, you go through our website, vantaleagues.com, and if you click on the leagues, object or tab above, you can see more about our offerings and the games, and you can sign up. It's free for now, which is great. We will be launching our paid leagues in June, but We're very excited and and blessed for your support. We're now going to transition now to a Q&A, and feel free to provide your questions, through the chat. So thank you. Just going to stop sharing the screen right now. And I would like to kind of do an introduction, if we could, maybe before we go into the questions. I'd like to introduce Pat Cronin, our CEO. We'll kind of do around the Zoom sort of intro, if we will, just so everyone can see a name to a face. So Pat, maybe say a few words, please.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So I'm Pat Cronin. I'm the CEO of Vanta Leagues. Been friends with Ed since we did our MBA together, built a couple entrepreneurial organizations together. Same thing as Kyle on the call, both BC MBA grads. I am a passionate gamer. I have been since I was a kid, ever since I got my first Super Nintendo. I was never really into esports until Ed called me last year talking about the issues that he had with cyberbullying. Started getting a lot more into it now, and trying to understand the space and build something that I'm very familiar with as a former athlete. Spent a lot of time playing every sport on the planet: football, wrestling, and lacrosse, and all sorts of things. And so we're just applying a model that's already existed to this really underdeveloped, fractured market, to benefit these kids. And so my background, I was an Army veteran, West Point undergrad, and did a couple startups. And then, this is my latest iteration startup, and just really happy to be here with the team.
Thanks, Pat. Kyle, you're on. We can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Also, thank you again to everyone who showed up tonight. I really appreciate your interest in Vanta. So like Pat mentioned, I met Ed and Pat during our BC MBA, where we actually built an entrepreneurship club together that's still going strong today, with growing membership and a lot of new programs coming out all the time. So that's sort of where we connected. Previous to that, I actually studied entrepreneurship and small business at the University of Vermont, worked for a brief time in the brewing industry and hospitality management before coming down to Boston College, where, again, I met these two and continued my interest in entrepreneurship from that perspective. But I really came down to Boston to make a career pivot into tech. So currently a director of product and marketing at a tech company in the Newton area. And similar to what Pat mentioned, I've been an avid gamer my entire life, played of all sorts of different games. But, I've noticed in this space, as it's become more sophisticated and more widely available for people of all ages and kids especially, the games that come out today are just more and more complex, complicated, a lot more competitive. There's a huge learning curve for them. And there's a lot of people that want to be good, want to be great. And so that can be part of what breeds this toxic atmosphere of, if you're not on the level or not as good as the next person, you can really get shut down pretty quickly. And even as an adult, if playing these games and not being as good as the next person, I've experienced what it can be like to be on the receiving end of someone being upset that you're not playing to that level. So once I heard about this business model that Pat and Ed were looking at pursuing around providing a safe place for kids to be able to come and enjoy the games the way they're supposed to be enjoyed, and to actually have a chance to build a community, which, by the way, when you have people to game with, they are so much more fun. They're so much more enjoyable. You actually have a chance to get better and to learn from each other. And with Vanta, with some really great coaches. So it's a really enriching experience all the way around. And I'm just really excited to see this vision go global.
Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce our special guest, Rebecca Yocono. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so funny to be called a special guest. I'm the middle school head at Worcester Academy out in Worcester, Mass. Worcester Academy is my 4th independent school. I'm a middle school educator at heart. And when Ed contacted me because he had contacted our upper school dean of student life, I get a lot of calls from people trying to sell me stuff or sell me programs. And this was a really unique opportunity at a time when our students were remote and we were looking for a chance to build community, but also I knew the kids were spending a lot of time on computers and whether it was remote learning or doing their homework or gaming. And, you know, the entire time I've been an educator, I've watched kids get more and more consumed by gaming of some kind. And I'm married to a gamer, and I know how all consuming it could be. My wife tried to get me into gaming, and the graphics are so complex that they made me motion sick. So I was like, this is a totally different, like doing something different with your eyes and brain. But it was really exciting because I knew the kids were gaming. I knew they were staying up too late. I knew the language wasn't great. I knew they were having trouble navigating the landscape out there. So it was really serendipitous to get that email. And I would sort of compare what Vanta does to, you know, your local club basketball team or your local school sports team. Because if you send your kid down to the local park or the local school to play pickup basketball just on the courts with anyone, like they're so vulnerable out there, right? Just playing basketball. They're vulnerable to the bigger kids coming and trying to take over the court, take their ball. They're vulnerable to adults creeping up on the basketball court. And you know when they're at club, you know when they're in the school gym, like the most vulnerable they are is some parent who's more competitive than the team itself. But you know, it's managed, right? And so having that modeling and instruction and intentionality was something that really appealed to me as the head of a middle school with lots of gamers. And then that piece around social emotional learning is something, you know, most schools are going to a model where that learning is intentional, and Worcester Academy is no different. And so partnering with Vanta to figure out kind of where is that wraparound, you know, the social emotional learning that happens in the classrooms, at the school level, in the families, and then in the community. This is that community wraparound, just like the clubs are the community wraparound in churches and whatever organizations you belong to. But those pieces of social emotional learning that are about self-awareness and self-management, social awareness, relationship building, and decision-making are all pieces of this puzzle that has to happen in an intentional way. And I'm really excited that Vanta's doing that. So I drank the Kool-Aid.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'd like to, invite, our attendees to, ask questions. Ask Rebecca if you want to hear from the source, not from a sales guy like me, like hear it, and like would love to understand, like, any concerns or any, anything that you would like to learn about this program. So feel free to type your question in the chat and we'll read it. First question is, I'm a parent who knows nothing about gaming. How would I be able to track my kids' progress in the program? Who would like to answer that? Pat?
So I can talk to you about where we are today with that and where we want to be with that in the future. So we are building a software platform that is going to be COPPA compliant. It will be, the COPPA is the set of laws that govern business interactions with children under the age of 13. And so when we get to that platform, we're going to be trying to build in a lot of analytics for performance for the kids. And this is not just gaming performance. So we will try to tap APIs into the actual games and allow you to see your progress and your skill level, which is very easy to report on. Right? There are actual levels and skill levels that are reported for the game that the kids would be able to track. But we are trying to wrap our heads around how to track emotional development, how to track your progress towards becoming a higher performer across various different things. And so this is something that we are actively working on and trying to build into our platform long term. For now, I think it's just you'll see a difference when your kids are in the room. Like one of the things that we heard consistent feedback from parents was the rage quitting that was happening when they were playing the game individually. When they're in their room, they would, lose a game, smash the controller, start yelling, and the parent would have to come in and say, hey, what's going on? That was happening consistently less. Right, the kids being on a team and then having that coach in the room were far more capable of self-managing effectively. And this is something that's unique and I think is a direct benefit of just the structure itself. On top of having trained quality coaches in there that are able to, calm the kids down, help them reflect on the situations that they are entering. If they lose a game, helping them turn the corner and say, okay, this is a positive learning experience, right? We need to understand that losing is part of life. It's part of competition. And this is where you can gain some of your best motivation and your best life lessons are from your failures. And so helping to have an adult in the room, help them reflect on those life lessons is really helping, I think the obvious progress emotionally that you're just noticing that, they'll be a little bit quieter than some of the experiences you've had in the past, but definitely working towards a technology solution towards that as we go forward.
Thanks, Pat. So what are the technical requirements to participate? I'm actually going to answer the first part of this, and then I'd like to have Rebecca maybe talk about someone like, providing technology requirements for your school. So, for us, like each game, and we offer 3 games, and there's a reason why we offer 3 games, because they're the best in their sort of genre, and they also are aligned well with the high schools and the colleges. For those who don't know, there are colleges that offer scholarships, full paid scholarships to play on their video game team. So it's a new world. So, the idea here is if we can get you to immerse your child in understanding the fundamentals of the game, you'll be ready to succeed. And it starts with having the right tech. So for League of Legends, and each one, we do League of Legends, Rocket League, and Valorant. League of Legends has a bit more sort of, variety with the type of tech you can do. So you can do a Mac, you can do a PC. With Rocket League, it can be, console based, and you can do PC, no Mac. And with Valorant, you can do a PC, no Mac at all. And across the board, Chromebooks will not work. So I think that's important. We ask that everyone has a mouse, so they can control rather than the finger pad. That doesn't work. And we ask that kids, when they play, to plug it in, because oftentimes when they use a laptop and they don't plug it in, oh my God, the screen went black. So yeah, it's a best practice to keep the power on. With Wi-Fi, we recommend around 30 to 60 megabytes per second. That should be sufficient just to turn on. So this is not life-shattering tech. I got to build out my tech program. It's not like that. This is very basic stuff that can be, it can be acquired through your basic cable provider and such. So I'm going to pass this on to Rebecca because I think it would be interesting to hear from you on building a LAN site versus the virtual model that we have, and maybe just going to talk about what your thoughts are around that for tech requirements. So tech requirements for you, how are you supporting on a virtual basis, and do you have any plans for a LAN-based program?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking me.
So yeah, for virtual, do you have, let's talk about your virtual for the, are you supplying your kids laptops?
Oh, got it. We provide our kids with MacBook Airs, and for the students that are involved in Vanta, if they need help getting that external mouse, we'll help them with that. Most of them are playing at home. A couple of them tried to back out of this season because they didn't have consoles, and I think they just transferred over to someplace, to one of the games that they could play on their MacBook Air. So we provide the machines, and we have a meeting at the beginning of every season to help the kids make sure that they have downloaded everything they need to download and have all the tools that they need to be successful. But in general, we just provide them kind of with that structure, and we have our integration specialist who sits in on some of the practices and games, so that she can have a sense of troubleshooting on our end, because we do have the kids on campus in person 4 days a week, and so our tech integration specialist helps troubleshoot if they have hardware or software problems.
I think what we've seen across the board is that the hardware doesn't tend to be an issue. Where we see the most issues is actually what you're probably very familiar with, which is audio and visual. So if they don't have headphones and there's a lot of background noise, they may have to stay on mute longer. So And that is one additional thing I might recommend, is getting headphones, or it doesn't have to be fancy ones like this, but just having the ability to block out some of the background noise is important.
Great point. We have another question. Are you seeing Vanta increase children's healthy habits in gaming outside of practice and game time?
So I think this is a work in progress. We have seen that, and this is where we want to try and develop good partnerships with schools. And I'm very familiar with a model where the coach and the parent and the educators were working in tandem, right? And you had the kids showing up for practice, and they were reinforcing the requirements of the schools. They were in communication with the parents, and they're all working together to make sure that they were developing healthy life habits. School, student athletes. I think it's the same thing here. So we have seen instances where the kids are playing too many video games outside of Vanta, and we're aware of it and trying to work with the schools and the parents to prevent that, so that we do have an optimized screen time that when they're playing video games, we want it to be with Vanta, and we want it to be in this healthy environment. And when you're not playing, you should be doing other things, right? You should be doing your schoolwork. You should be, engaging with whatever your parents want to. So this is a work in progress. I think we've had, some benefits from this, but yeah, this is going to come to fruition more when we have more solid relationships with schools, and we have a similar model that we're used to. Good question.
I think too that some of the wraparound that I was talking about before, where there's the school and the parents and Vanta working in partnership around, this isn't intended to be an add-on to the video gaming that they're already doing. This
Exactly.
is intended to be sort of an alternative or supplement that overlaps with the video gaming they're already doing, because they're gaming already, right? And our students have 30 minutes per night per subject of school also on top of that, and that's a lot of screen time for kids, especially if some or all of their schooling right now is virtual. So this isn't intended to be in addition to all of that screen time. And I often say to parents, like, this is your imaginary permission slip to take the laptop away, which is one of the reasons why it's nice to have the school providing the technology, is we can say, like, if you won't take it away, we'll just have them turn it in at the end of the day. And the kids definitely don't want that. So that partnership and communication is really important.
And I will say, there's one other aspect here that we're really hoping does get reinforced, which is the good gamer citizenship. And, we're trying to put this league together and this company together in a way that is responsible. And we're teaching kids how to be responsible global citizens using the internet. Right, the cyberbullying is a whole internet problem. It's not just gaming, but we feel like if we can teach them in this space while they're, at their most malleable, at their most vulnerable, how to be good gamer citizens should carry over into the rest of their life. So this is something that's hard to monitor for us, but we do hope that by giving them the example, a good example of how to behave, how to have proper internet etiquette, how to just act like a normal human who is engaging with people, real people, and not being toxic, even though you're 1,000 miles away or even a mile away. We hope carries over, and that's kind of a working thesis. But yeah, that's something that we're trying to embed as much as we can here. So.
Well, and too, Pat, I think, we talk a lot in schools about the need to teach digital citizenship. Yeah. And so much of citizenship now it's just all citizenship, right? Yeah. Like there is your digital footprint and your digital identity. And I think some of the kids, they draw too hard and fast a line between their digital life and their real life, yeah. Right? And helping them to actually blur that line, to say, like, the person that you are in real life and what you would say to somebody face to face if you lost a bet or if you lost a game or whatever. Like, good sportsmanship is good sportsmanship, and citizenship is citizenship.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree.
We have another question here. As a teacher, how much am I able to participate or supervise the students from my school during practices and games? I'd like to see how Rebecca kind of, it involves her staff in the practices and games. Rebecca?
Yeah. So again, going back to our tech integration specialist, like our kids are in practice right now, and she was just texting me. We had a kid who was absent today who showed up to practice, which we don't usually allow, but we're going to go with it. But it's really great actually to have her sit in on those practices. One of the groups that our kids are involved in, I think, has 4 or 5 of Worcester Academy kids on the same team. And so she sits in on the practices. She doesn't have to supervise because that's what the coach's job is. And we've partnered with Vanta to talk about what their expectations are, what our expectations are, and when we pass the baton, when things get out of hand. And having a member of my staff on the practice call really helps with that, so that the kids know there's somebody watching, and it's not like a big brother sort of watching. It's more, they know that she's there kind of as the school representative, and it reminds them that they're representing our school. So it's really, Vanta's really partnered with us to help make that happen.
And I'll also say, as much as you want to participate, this is totally open. We want to make sure that the educators and parents have as much access as they want. And it's really important to us that you have the ability to get into these practices, watch the games, make sure that you meet the coaches and you can see who's actually interacting with the kids. And then, we also, I can't remember if we mentioned this already, but we always follow a rule of 2. We don't just leave the coaches in there, regardless of whether there is a school administrator in there or not. There's always a Vanta staff member moderating those practices at all times. So we never leave them alone. And, we make sure that the safety is there first. But yeah, totally open access. And you can either watch the games through Twitch and just see the output, or, you can get into the practice sessions themselves as well.
And that's a really good point, Pat. I mean, like we make it fun and we make it educational. So the Twitch streams that, for those who don't know, Twitch is like a live broadcasting sort of podcast, if you will, that you can window in on every Saturday at 3:00 and 5:30. We actually have coaches and like a moderator, to go and talk about what the heck am I looking at? What is this game that my kid's doing that I can't relate with at all? This is not baseball. Like, this is not basketball. What is League of Legends? Like, what is like Valorant? So what it can, Rocket League, yeah, I kind of get it. Like, hit the ball in the goal. But what we end up doing is informing our audience how this actually works, and let the parents then and educators connect in a more meaningful way when they're discussing these type of games with the students. So it's not something where like you feel indifferent. Now you can feel really connected to it, and it's a way just to see progress. I mean, these leagues are designed to see individual improvement over time, and it is very, very clear that these kids are improving their game skill, not on just the mechanics, but also the teamwork, the communication. You can see that in game, and it's a marvelous thing. It's really something. And so if you want to see it, again, Twitch, it's recorded, and you can also go to our YouTube channel as well.
And I'll also say, I don't know that you necessarily have to be a expert in the game to support the kids and be a super fan. And my mom never understood wrestling or lacrosse or any of the sports I played, but she was at every game, screaming her head off, supporting me. And we've seen a couple of that, some super fans start to pop up, and they, go, the kid's name, and they have no idea what's going on, but they like it just the same.
It's super fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's really super fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point too, and something that I see potential for Vanta in the future. I just really like the sort of this interaction here between like parents wanting to understand what their kids are doing and educators wanting to understand what their kids are doing. And I think for a lot of parents and educators, that video game time or that screen time is a time that they don't really feel like they connect much with. They almost sort of lose their kids to the games for however many hours they're there, and they don't really know what's going on. They don't understand the games themselves or why it's so compelling. So I think there's a really good opportunity for us at Vanta to help educate parents as well as like, why are your kids so into these games? Why are they interested in it? Learn about what your kids' interests are so that you can also share in another aspect of their life and their passion. And there's a lot of kids that will have this passion for the entire life. I mean, we're three of them right here, grown up, former gamers who still, I connect through this COVID last year. Like I stayed in close touch with a lot of my closest friends through gaming and time spent virtually. So, my parents would have no idea why that is or why this is something that it's a passion of mine back in the day, because it's just so foreign. So hopefully we can bring some understanding for parents about their kids' interests too, so it's another area that they can share with them.
Kyle, I'd like to say something about that as well. Like you talked about connecting with your friends, but one of the reasons that kids often cite for wanting to get into online gaming is that they are accepted no matter what, right? Like you're a name on the screen and you have an avatar and you sort of live by proxy, participate by proxy. And when the kids are playing on this platform with kids from the school they go to, it matters. It makes a difference, right? So we have a couple of kids who are playing with Vanta who are kids who are struggling to connect socially at school. And because they've made those connections at school on Vanta, on the games, they're coming to school feeling more connected and more confident because they've been on that team and they know that some of the folks on that team are kids that go to school with them. And they have to have that time with them, kind of confront them face to face, given whatever consequences, if they got mad in the practice or whatever. But we've had a couple of kids who really were struggling socially, who have started to make those inroads socially face to face on campus because they were participating in something they were going to do anyway.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that.
Story. Yeah, that's great.
And this is where I got most of my friends in high school. Is I was on athletic programs, and if I didn't have that, I would have been a loner. I feel very empathetic for the kids that are out there that don't want to play sports. They have no interest in sports. They aren't interested in drama or music, and they don't have a place, and they just have been gaming. And now they have a place. They have a place where they can come, make friends, build meaningful relationships, and develop.
A question that I received, love what you guys are doing. Any chance this webinar is recorded so I can share it with the administrators in school? Yes, we will be, this is recorded, and we will definitely have this available for you to share with your colleagues. We will be posting this up on our YouTube channel as well. So we'll definitely keep you posted. But yeah, for those who would like to kind of share this externally, we will provide you that link. I think something that I think would be really interesting, a question, can you just, COPPA compliance. It is a regulation that is outstanding for, for minors. And, our age bracket that we developed, that we focus on, is ages 9 to 14. We don't use Discord. Discord is, for ages 13 and older. And so Pat, maybe you can talk about how are we handling, working with minors and creating a safe and secure environment, particularly on the communication side for practices and games.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple levels to this, right? So there's the laws themselves, right? COPPA itself. To be legally compliant with COPPA, you need to have basically two buckets at a very high threshold. So one is privacy. You need to have open access to any information that we're collecting. The parents need to know everything that we're doing. If they have any request to delete the information or remove themselves from the system, it has to be completely purged from your business. The other side is security. So the burden's just very high for data security and making sure that there's no ability for people to intrude on your practices, to get access to your data, or anything like that. That's the legal complexities. You have to build those into your platform or anything that you're building. And for a lot of companies, they have gone so far afield with what they've built that it's too late for them to retrofit their software. If you can just think of one example of a user wants to delete their information from your system and you have multiple systems where information is stored, that's actually extremely difficult because you haven't tagged that and you haven't systematized that across your entire software stack. For us, designing it from the get-go, very easy because we have this in mind from the starting place. So we're designing with COP in mind. And so legally, that's probably one level. The next level is corporate responsibility, right? Where we have to be good arbiters. It's not just a check the block, making sure that we are legally compliant and we're kind of covering our ass, pardon my French, but we want to go a step further and make sure that what we're putting into the world is good, right? That nobody's going to abuse the system. And, it's not just, are we going to win a lawsuit or not? It's, are we actually going to be putting more good into the world than we are putting, building something that's just for profit? And I've never wanted to build anything that is purely for profit. This is all of us on the Vanta staff are altruistic, motivated people. And, this is something that we continue to harp on, is build and do good. And so building in systems and operational procedures to make sure that the environment is as safe as possible is paramount for us. So like one example is just the Vanta Academy itself, making sure that the quality coach that is interacting with your child is the highest quality possible, building an entire structure around that so we can ensure that not only are they going to develop your child in the video game, but they are trustworthy. They have been through modules on integrity, leadership development, mentorship, social emotional learning. And it's a full spectrum approach to this to make sure that this is somebody that you can trust and the brand itself is a trustworthy brand. So you feel comfortable. And we don't want to take that for granted. We never want to take any of our customers for granted. So this is something that's really important to us. And I think that's kind of where, the levels that we're dealing with is the technical side, where we build complexities into our software, like giving open access to the parents to see any text-based communication between their child and a coach. That'll be built into our software. Having the ability to get notified when your child is in a practice and they are, eventually we'd be like to provide other services, making sure that they know that those services are happening, making sure that the educators are in the loop and they're being notified for any communication that goes out. So all of these processes, building that into the software, and then, having a focus on corporate responsibility and making sure that we're building something inherently good.
Thank you. Question on the curriculum. Can you talk about what that holistic player development curriculum looks like, and how do we curate that?
Yeah, so this is a work in progress. So there's a couple different pillars that we work with. So the first is the game itself. And so this is where we source a lot of different opinions and a lot of different aspects from our experience, early days. And now it's sort of like a crowdsourcing effort from a lot of our coaches, where we can pull from some of the best players and, what they've experienced on their teams and how they are, how they would systematize some of the learnings that they've just sort of had through trial and error. So we're building those a really robust and I think really solid player game-based curriculums. On top of that, we have a new advisor who is part of Vanta. He's currently the performance development coach for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The chief development officer at Vanta, who is not here today, Jim Roach, is a former professional baseball player. My background is athletics as well. I was actually a national level judo player and a world champion in Sambo. So we all come from extensive athletic professional development backgrounds, and we're applying that model to our developmental programs. And the other side of that is the educational piece. And we're working through this. This is not necessarily in full transparency, it's not our background, but we are working with educators, Rebecca included, some additional advisors that we're trying to work with to help us build a more robust social emotional learning component to training these coaches. Because the true agent of Vanta is the coach. They're the one doing most of the heavy lifting in terms of the environment that they set, the curriculums, the true player development happens there. The moderators are there just sort of as a guardians and fly on the wall and, to help develop the coaches, but all the player development happens there. So how we train them is paramount. So building it from those three pillars is how we go about the curriculum builds, and weaving in some other things like physical wellness, like stretching their wrists and hands before the practices, meditation to get their minds right, some tools and techniques to calm down after losses and things like that. So we're working a lot of different angles to try and see what does the optimal practice structure look like, what's the appropriate level of explicit practice schedule versus how much leeway do we give to the coaches themselves to flex. And this is where the beta and alpha tests have come in, as we're piloting and experimenting with different curriculums to see what works the best.
Thank you. Next question. Where do you source the coaches? I certainly can talk to that. So right now we source coaches from a couple places. Number one, colleges. So we look to establish nodes of excellence in different states, and we target like the specific college programs and their the esports directors who are more than happy to have an outlet for their players to learn leadership skills through Vanta. So this is part of their sort of capstone like learning program, at these various colleges. And it's also a great way for them to market their school. So they love this. So, the way that we approach is we work with colleges and different universities. And, what we'll end up doing is, you saw a chart earlier that, we have an extensive vetting process. We make sure that they're fully committed to the actual season, to the development and learning. And most people, the feedback is, I wish I had this when I was in middle school. I'll do this for free, but it's a bonus that I can actually get paid. So we've got a lot of passionate people who are wanting to give back, and they're that altruistic mission that is inherent in the founders. I think it breathes through the actual staff as well, that we're like, and the coaches that we bring on. It really means a lot. It's part of their culture to build and do good. So, that's what we're trying to inspire. And what we're trying to do is, if we can create those centers of excellence from the colleges and then connect the middle schools, and then eventually we're going to age up to high schools. Now we've got a sustainable pipeline here. So all the programs will thrive year after year. And then this ecosystem, as I was saying earlier, can actually, become better and healthier. So yeah, good question there. Another question is, what other games are you looking to add? I think this is an interesting sort of roadmap question, Pat. So I didn't know if you're looking to talk about that.
So we do have a product development pipeline that we assess different products, and we would consider a new game edition, a new league edition, a product for us. So we have a vetting process that we go through to make sure that what we're putting out into the market does have an appreciable market for it, that the kids want to play it. We can operationalize and actually support those games. And a really important piece of that is we can source coaches for it. There are a lot of games that come out that are sort of flavor of the month, and they don't necessarily have professional coaches. And so that's kind of not, we don't really fit there, because if it's a brand new game and you don't have a level of expertise that has been built up in the market, we can't actually accelerate your growth. So they have to be sort of more established esports games. We try to avoid some of the more violent games and make sure that they're a little bit more kid friendly, obviously because of the target market. We're working with schools. But I will also say that we are not trying to limit ourselves, because we're trying to go where the kids go. And this is important for our mission, where we're trying to address the problems in the market. And I think a lot of schools will opt out of games like Valorant because they're first person shooters, and completely understand. It's a totally understandable position to take. But our position is, if the kids are playing Valorant and there's toxicity in those environments, we need to be there. They need to be playing on Vanta because they're playing Valorant anyways. So we do try to avoid the more violent games like Call of Duty. But we want to go where the kids go, make sure there's an appreciable market. It has, it's a sustainable game, so it's got an esports presence and pro teams, and there's coaches that we can source for that game. But really, anything's on the table as long as we can, staff it and we have the bandwidth to do so.
Thanks, Pat. Well, it's at 8:00 right now, Eastern time. So, that will conclude tonight's information session. I hope everyone found the presentation meaningful. Again, if you would like to receive a copy of tonight's presentation following tonight's meeting, and if you have any additional questions, please reach out to myself at vantaleaks.com. With that, I would like to thank our special guest, Rebecca Yocono, for joining us.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Appreciate it. And my special colleagues, Patrick Cronin and Kyle Donnelly, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
to you attendees for joining us, and thank you for listening in. Really do appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you at our next season. So thank you so much, and have a pleasant night.
Thanks,
Be well.
everyone.
Thanks,
See y'all.
everyone. Thanks, Ed.